Okay, a word of warning before we begin. You're working on Azure in this demo. Be very careful. It can cost you a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, and even if you do know what you're doing, if you're not careful and you don't get rid of some of this stuff or shut it down or pick the wrong selection, it can cost you a lot of money. Okay, so please be careful. Do this at your own risk. Do it on a test machine. But even on a test machine, you still might be incurring billing. So make sure you know how much you're getting billed as you're doing this, okay? So that's my warning to you. And with that, we'll continue. Hi, this is Greg Koopman. Today we're going to go ahead and create a VPN, an Azure VPN, for us to connect from our remote desktop connection to our Azure virtual machine. As pointed out in video 1 of this series in the introduction, this video is video number 2, and it's really focused on this part of our diagram discussed in video 1. And this part is the virtual network and point-to-site configuration for that network and the gateway. It also utilizes the VPN. So this whole area is what we're going to be discussing today, how to set this piece up. The second part, which comes into our third video, will be over on this side, and you can see that will be coming in video 3. But now we're going to start off by looking at our Azure portal and creating the objects we need there to make our VPN and our point-to-site configuration of our gateway work properly. First, we're going to go ahead and create a resource group. And I went into my resource groups and just went ahead and did an add. And I'm going to call this on-premise VPN and sync, because it's going to be used in a bigger picture. Okay, so we're going to go in Central US, and that's fine. Let's just go ahead and create that. Validation passed, and now it's created. Okay, go to resource group. Within the resource group, we want to create a virtual network, and we're going to add here to a new virtual network, which we're going to call on-prem VPN and sync network. Okay, we're going to go ahead and choose our resource group here, which of course is going to be our on-prem VPN and sync, which I'm just going to copy into my clipboard so I can use it for other things here. Subnet, I'm going to leave it as default. Address range, I'm going to leave it that alone the same way. Service point and everything, I'm just going to leave the same. Okay, so I'm going to create that. Now it's creating my virtual network. Next, this will be virtual network gateway. We're going to create that. My name will be on-premise gateway. And the region will be Central US. The SKU, I'm just going to leave that as alone, just as it is. And we're going to choose my virtual network, which is Open-Prem Sync Network. I do not want a public IP address. Right now I'm going to go ahead and take it anyways, even though we're not going to be using it. We'll let that be create new, and we'll go ahead and review and create. Public ID IP name, let's call it public IP name. Very original. That's validating, it validated, and now we have our virtual network gateway. I'm now going to go ahead and create a virtual machine. Let's just review for a moment and make sure my group is, my resource group has everything I expect in it. Okay, now let's go ahead and create a virtual machine. And because I'm going to be using this inside with sync Azure Sync Services, it will only work with, at this point, with Windows 2012 R2 server and higher. So I will be selecting a Windows 2016 server. So I'm going to create the same, have the same resource group, which is going to be on-prem VPN and sync. My virtual machine name is going to be, you betcha, 2016 Win 2016 server. Okay, it's going to be in the, okay, it's looking for Linux, and it's, we're not going to do a Linux, we're going to do a 2016 data center. Okay, and I'm only allowed 15 characters, so I will call this, I'll go against my naming standards a little bit and just call this Win 2016 server, and we'll go ahead and call this Central US, of course. And my 8 RAM, I'd rather have that, and that's cheaper, so let's just go with this one. Okay, and the username, I'm going to name it Greg. Password, all selected ports. RDP is my inbound port. Already have Windows Server, no, and next I want a disk on here, so I'm just going to go with regular SSD, and we're going to create and attach new disk, and I'm just going to make it kind of small to begin with, I guess. I want to know if it fills up too fast. I'm just going to go with 128 gig. That should be ample for quite a while, since it's only going to hold my sync changes. Okay. All right. So that's it. Advanced. We're looking at advanced real quick. Manage disks. Okay. Let's go next to networking. Right networking. We want the. It's already default to the right network. That's good. Subnet is fine. IP, okay, that's fine. All looks good. Let's see. I want to have this shut off every night at a certain time, which should be in here. Enable auto shutdown, and I want it to 7 p.m. is fine. And next, advanced. And host group, tags. Review and create. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create that now. I think that's going to work fine. It's going to cost me 11 cents per hour. Create. Okay, now we're going to create our certificates for our security and our authentication from our client machine to the network and to our VPN. So basically, in order to create these certificates, we need to go ahead and we don't need a certificate authority in this case, but what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to go to a PowerShell script. So PowerShell super powerful. You can mess the things up, so be careful. As with everything we're doing here. Okay, so run as administrator. Yes. And now we're coming into the shell. I have a file which I'm going to put the code down in the information section of this video. So let's just go ahead and grab the code. So sometimes you might need to use this. Right now that dollar sign, that pound sign is a comment, so it's not going to be executed. And you need to execute this as a whole. Don't do like separate here, okay? So what we're going to do is just hit our everything. It's going to run all at once. It's going to create a keys called VPNRootCert and VPNChildCert, okay? And so what we're going to do is hit our run command, and they should be created. Next, we need to go into an MMC, Microsoft Management Council, okay, which you get to Microsoft Management Council by typing in MMC, and it will bring up its council, and then you have to do an add-in, which in this case is a certificate add-in. So you come down to File, New, and you say Add, Remove, Snap-in, and you go to Certificates, and you say Add. My user account is fine. Okay. And now my certificates will show up. And what I want to do is go to my personal certificates. Okay, and what we'll see in here, there's these were already in there, but we had just created these two, the child certificate and the root certificate. Okay, now from here, so that's what happened when we did the PowerShell script and ran that. So when we right click here and I run all tasks, I want to export that out to a folder, okay? And I need to get the signature that's in there. So I say next. Do I yes export private key? No, do not export private key. I do not want the private key. Okay, so then I want base 64 encode. File name, so I'll put it wherever I want. In this case, I'm going to put it right here, which will, I'm just going to name it what it is, which is VPN and root cert. Okay. And I'll save it. That's my download cert directory. Next, and finish. Export was successful. Now, what we need to do is go in. We're done with this screen. We don't need to use this anymore. No. Okay, so now, and we're done with this screen. So I'm going to go to Notepad. Let's say File, Open. I'm going to locate that directory and folder. And go to certificates. And I should see go all files. And there's my PS root certificate. So I'm going to open that guy up. And what I need to do is copy this piece, no more, no less, to the clipboard. So copy. Okay. Don't use the begin cert or the end cert or these hyphens, everything in between there. Okay, now I've copied that to the clipboard. I'm going to go into my virtual network gateway that I created earlier. Okay, so now I'm in the on-premise VPN and sync gateway. Here's my virtual network gateway, right? And I'm going to go down to point to site configuration. So you click there. And I want to click on Configure Now. So in our address pool, I'm going to use a address that was presented in the examples on this page of the Microsoft documentation for configuring a point-to-site connection. and that should be fine. So let's just go back over there. And that's good. So now we're root certificates. So I'm just going to call this VPN root cert. Okay. And here I'm going to copy in the certificate that I got from my root certificate on my local drive. Okay. So once we get all that, Azure certificate, that's all fine. Root certificates. Okay, address, we're in good shape. And I need to set this tunnel type to IPv2 and SSTP, SSL. This should make it correlate with my local Windows machine. Okay, so we got all that in, and let's go ahead and save this. And that might take a little while. Okay, that came back fine, so let's see what we got here. Okay, that was successful. So now we can download the VPN client, okay, which is going to download it, then we'll run it on our client, which is what I'm on, and that's going to give us a whole connection setup. Okay, so let's go ahead and download that. Click on download. So this has established a communications between my computer, my local computer, and the network on Azure, okay, through this VPN. Okay, so it's collected all my data, my certificate information, so that's part of the public and private certificates, and that's how we pass the credentials in a safe manner. Okay, so here's my on-premise. Okay, so let's just go ahead and give that a special folder, and I'll just call this VPN for Azure. Okay, it downloads VPN, where are you? Okay, VPNs, a VPN for Azure. So here we are in our zip. I'll go ahead and unzip it. Extract folder, and then we'll run that exe, right? There should be an exe in here, I hope. Yeah, okay, so we have a Windows AMD 64. So I go in there and then I run this exe. All right, so I'm going to run that exe because I'm on a 64 machine. Windows Defender Smart Screen Prevented and Unrecognized. Okay, so it says don't run. Well, I do want to run this. I do trust it. So I click that information button, little hyperlink, and then the button shows up run anyways. Run it anyways. So then I say yes, do you wish to install? But of course every one of you guys have to do it at your own risk, okay? That's all I gotta say. Just like everything here in the YouTube world. Okay, so that's running that, and what it's really doing is creating the client on my machine. So when we're done with this, I'm going to be able to click down in my connections, my VPN connections, and I'm going to see this connection. And all I have to do then is hit connect, and it will connect me up to that virtual network on Azure. Okay, and that's going to be a wonderful thing. Okay, so and we're going to see a little example of why that's so good. Obviously, it's going to help us in the overall picture of this series, but I'm going to show you real quick at the very end here that we won't need a public IP address to connect to our virtual machine. We'll be able to run our virtual machines with a private IP address, and as long as we're on the VPN, we can go ahead and remote desktop end it on that private IP address. We won't need a public IP address. Okay, ironically, it didn't show me any sort of splash screen or that it was proceeding or progressing or that finished. But after a while, it said, okay, well, let's see. So when I went down to my network, I could see on-prem VPN sync network. That's the name of my network, right? That's the guy I've been looking for, right? I set one up earlier in a test environment for hybrid, and this is the one that we have now for this particular one. So let's go ahead and click on that, and you'll come in here and you'll see it's under VPNs, I click there and I hit connect here, okay? And that's going to connect me, like I said, to the Azure network. So I'm clicking and I hit connect and continue. Verifying the password, that's when it does the certifications. And look at that, it says connected. So we're connected. Okay, now how do we know we're connected? Well, okay, so when I do an IP config all, and we look at the adapter for the open-prem sync network, it's 198.168.2.2, okay? So try that. Now we see we're getting a reply, and that's our gateway into, that's getting to our gateway into the virtual network. All right, so now the second test I would do is I'm going to go and look at my virtual, my VM. Okay, the VM I set up. Okay, so virtual machines, and I set up a VM. Again, it was the on-prem, right? The one that says, well, it wouldn't say on-prem because I couldn't, it was too long a name. So it's this one, the Wins 2016 server. That's the one I set up inside that resource group. And I also set it up on the on-prem VPN and sync network, right? So notice there's a public IP address and there's a private IP address. Okay, if I wasn't in the VPN, I wouldn't be able to get in through the private, okay? So let's just copy. So I'm going to RDP into that. So I got that. I got my private address, which isn't public. So if I wasn't in the network, I can't get to this. So, but since I'm on the VPN and it's connected, I should be able to get to that. So it's trying to connect now. It's giving me a login, so that's looking. All right, it looks like we're going in. Okay, so as you see, that virtual machine's on the network. My VPN's on the network. I'm connected to the VPN, and so my RDP session, I'm able to get to the behind into the network. So I'm basically on the network, on the Azure network. Okay, and that's what we want to happen. All right, and that's going to help solve some problems that we were looking at before in lesson 1, okay, in section 1. And I go to local servers. And sometimes I have to work this thing a little bit. So configure local server. Here we go, file storage. When you see the file storage, disks, right? So when we get to disks, we're going to see one that's unknown, because I did create this during our, as I demonstrated, but it hasn't been initialized and mounted. So here I'm going to take this and I'm going to initialize it. Perform this operation erases all data on the disk, which there's nothing on the disk. Okay, now it's initialized. Now I'm going to create a new volume, and it takes you through the wizard. Next, and on line 128, yep, I want the whole thing, and I'm going to go ahead and do 128 minimum size. Okay, looks good. It's going to put on the F drive, which is fine with me. And it's very important that you have NTFS. Okay, you have to have NTFS. Don't do REFS, NTFS. Okay, and that's it. So then hit next and create. And this shouldn't take too long. And when it comes back, and it came back. Okay, so it's finished. So now I have an F drive. And I'm just going to make sure that I can see the F drive if I put a share on it. So I'm going to put a share on it. I'm just going to put a folder on it. I'm going to call it KB. I'm just going to call it KB, which is knowledge base. All right, so KB, I'm going to right click, go to properties, Go to sharing, share. I'm going to leave the defaults there and just say share. Individual items. Done. That's fine. Your folder is shared. So when I look at it, you see the network path is right here. Okay. So that's what I need. So close it. I'm just going to put a file out there just for the heck of it. Let's put a text document. Let's call it practice.text. And I'll just say practice. Practice hard. Alright. File save. And close. Okay, so we have this file out there. It's on. Oh, it's not on the share, so that I need to push it up to the share. Okay, now it's on the share. So now I want to see if I can hit that from my local. Now I'm back on my local client. And I'm going to say, go to this PC, then say map drive, map the drive. I'll map it to X. And I'm going to paste in this URL. I don't think it's going to take it. I think I have to literally type in the IP address, but we're going to check it out anyways. So hit finish. Greg. Paste my password. And now it's trying to connect. And it asks me again. So it doesn't, when I found this in the past too, it doesn't like the, you know, the name of the server there when you do it this way. So what we're going to do is just type in okay, and I think that's going to work. So we're going to say finish, and it's asking me for my login again. I put in my password, and I think it's going to work. It did. It worked. Okay, so there we got the KB. Okay, it's connected, and there's my practice text file, okay, which has practice hard in it. Okay, very good. So we know we're connected. We're on the network just like we expected by joining it to the VPN. Now, if I went over here and I put my connection and I disable my connection here, all right, disconnected my VPN, well, all bets are off. Now you can't get to that. You can't get to that X drive. So I can go here and I can try to open this guy, and all I want to do is get an hourglass because it's going to try to find it. It ain't going to find it, okay, because you're no longer on the network, and that's a private IP address. Okay, so that's how the whole thing works, at least this piece of it. Part 3 will go into sync files, which is really the connection between this KB folder and the actual storage file share, and you're going to see how we configure that to work. And then everything then, when you go to this X drive, will be seamless all the way back to Azure storage. Okay, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.